Hi, I'm Bryce.
And I'm Jimmy.
We are telecom and creative professionals. We're also fans of podcasting as our respective careers give us an abundance of windshield time.
While there is a podcast for just about any obscure topic you can think of, there was no regular podcast pertaining to Montana politics.
And that is why, with our combined powers, we are Montana Voices Podcast.
We strive to be an independent voice for all issues pertaining to Montanans and Montana politics.
We also strive to be very forthcoming with our personal biases as we attempt to see beyond them.
Montana Voices Podcast does not operate in a vacuum. We need your support, whether that be listening to our cast, providing us feedback, sending us conversation topics, sharing our content, or providing financial support.
We look forward to a long career in podcasting with your added assistance.
Well, welcome to episode 33 of Montana Voices Podcast.
Hello, everyone. It's great to have you here with us.
Well, let's run through our business real quick, and then we'll dive right into it.
As always, you can find all of our podcasts and any episodes, any of our information. You're probably already here right now at our website, montanavoicespodcast.com. If you have any questions or concerns or comments, or you'd like to be on the podcast, you can hit us up at our email account, which is going to be montanavoices@gmail.com. Our Twitter feed is going to be at Montana_voices. Our Facebook account is at Montana Voices Podcast. And you can find all of our episodes on YouTube by searching for Montana Voices Podcast.
Well, it's great to be back, and it's just occurring to me that we could record that as well. I make you say it twice during every podcast, Bryce.
Yeah, well, it's part of the art there. It's along the lines of lip syncing. You know how that's a big taboo issue there.
Right. We do it live
performance. We do it live.
Exactly.
No matter how terrible it is, every time.
Well, I think we're just going to go in raw unless we have some very big missteps. This episode you're listening to right now is released unedited, unless we really screwed up. Got some comments. Apparently the timing of awkward pauses that were removed was awkward in the removal of said pauses. So it's straight through, and we will do it live.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I'd also like to point out that we plug straight in here, no effects.
Well, let's go run through our old issues here. Well, starting with Missoula commissioners wanting to bring back trains, and apparently that's more than just a rail dream. It may actually happen. A resolution has been drafted, and they're contacting other counties, such as Gallatin County, Cascade County. I think Yellowstone might have been on there. Butte was not, and they're upset about that, but Butte also has no active rails through it. I just learned.
Oh, well, why would you include a county that has no rail system?
Well, it'll be a sizable investment, but I don't know if Butte wants that. If it's easier to leave Butte, then will anybody
that's
stay?
That's just another way to get out of Butte.
And we trap them there next to the pit. So I was surprised that Butte didn't have any active rail lines. I think there's still rail lines there, but nothing active apparently. And I imagine they're decommissioned and will take quite a bit of maintenance to be viable again. So too bad for Butte.
All those lines got corroded out there with all the chemicals and stuff.
Butte's a great place.
It is.
Yeah, well, I love it, especially uptown. Great character, and I've enjoyed many stays in Butte. Well, we talked about the legislature not being in session, but they had a special, not special, unofficial, official meeting. Wolves again, of course. I think we crapped on the PSD for a good while, as I recall. That's sort of been a consistent theme on the cast.
And I wouldn't say we crap on them so much as just the fact that they had a blog specifically. Or no, not them. Really, I don't think we ever crapped on the PSC. I think that we made a lot of jabs at Northwestern Energy for having a blog dedicated to crapping on the PSC, but nothing specific to the PSC. We just, pointed out that their only purpose was to regulate the monopoly.
Yeah, they are not advocates for consumers. They do not represent consumers, to which the consumers that vote for them. You sure we weren't crapping on them?
You call it whatever you want.
We're just presenting facts. Come to your own conclusions.
Yeah. Let's see. What's this about? Beating up cities?
Yeah, or whole cities? Yeah, exactly.
Or no, it was Citizens United. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Oh,
here. Citizens United. Stop it or get it back together.
Exactly, and we of course had different opinions on that. I didn't think it was worthy of the attention that it gets. It's just
I still can't remember what it is even. So like I'm
It's
all for ending it
complex.
just so like people stop talking about it.
I recall spending a lot of time in the last cast trying
We
to
did. We
explain it
spent a
and
ridiculous
sort of
amount of
unable
time.
to. Well, we discussed the electioneering of the E-City Beat in Great Falls, which is why that last episode was entitled Blogs Are Dead. We may revamp that. I think this one we called Blogs Aren't Dead because blobs are making a comeback and they're actually doing stuff, which we'll get to in a moment.
Indeed. Let's see what else we got here. Alslowski. That guy's got a very difficult last name. And Republican cohort asked Danes to withdraw CSKT compact bill.
Yeah, I think that's a thing among Republicans is trying to revisit issues that have been long since determined.
Roe v. Wade.
Civil War, among a number of topics. The South will rise again, Bryce.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Well, we talked about Columbia Falls continuing to go out of their way to upset Browning. We had some unfortunate native news, which there's still more hard native news. We've spent a lot of time on this, and I don't know how much the heart can take here, Bryce. Should we just skip our first topic here?
Just, ugh. I don't know. I don't want to spend like a whole bunch of time on it just because like it's just ridiculous to this point of it just keeps happening.
Well, we'll try to keep it down. But Tony Renova is a very familiar name now. It's the 5-year-old that was returned to his biological native parents instead of a loving foster family, and he has ended up dead in a very, very gruesome manner, which just breaks our heart. And we have gotten national attention on it. And I cited an article from USA Today, and I think it's making the same errors that just about anywhere outside of native country or anybody that doesn't have a native influence in them is making, in that it's quick to point out the failures of this, specifically with the Indian Child Welfare Act. Put it simply, that was put in place to stop kidnappings, basically. Children would be removed from, or native children would be removed from their biological families and either sent to mission schools. We'll talk about Canada and the natives later. Or basically schools where there were some schools that had like a 75% mortality rate for students.
That's really, really high.
Yeah, it's so it was, kill the Indian, save the man sort of thing. But so there was a reason why the Indian Child Welfare Act was put in place. But every article I've read that's in the national press on this, was quick to condemn it. And yes, I actually had to talk to a few natives on this that are actually in 2 different tribes. I've got sources here who sort of came to an agreement that yes, it probably could be reviewed and updated for the new age, but it's there for a reason. So I think that's enough. I think that's all we can take without getting emotional about this, Bryce.
Yeah, it's anything to do with dead kids really hits me hard. So like I don't like to talk about it too much.
Well, something we can both agree on: taxation is theft.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, Montana Free Press, that organization we don't mention, tabulated a list of tax burden that's reviewed per county, and it's, other than Billings, which seems very low, it broke it down for like per capita. So it's like $770 some per capita your property tax liability to live in Yellowstone County, which is lower than, I think Missoula's $1,100 and Bozeman's about the same. Great Falls is surprisingly high for somewhere that doesn't have anything going for them. Or
Yeah,
Cascade
well,
County, I should say.
It's stagnant growth, but it's there. It's stagnant.
Oh, I completely misread the number here, Bryce. Cascade County is 606. That's on the lower or medium end of the spectrum, not counting when you get rid of some outliers like the really high one was that, not Bighorn County, but where they have all the resorts.
Oh, Big Sky.
Yeah, but that's Madison County, I think.
Yeah, I think it's Madison. I could be wrong on that one, but yeah, no, Madison sounds right.
Yeah, well,
'Cause
they
it's
have
done like by the Ennis area.
a residential per capita tax liability of about 16 grand. So I think that's that. Yeah. But the article was thorough. It did point out that that's a lot of resort properties and multi-million-dollar vacation homes and etc. So
A lot of celebs out there, a lot of celebrities.
yeah, if we can get them to pay all the taxes and fund our schools and all that, that would be great. Something we can get behind here.
If only they had money that wasn't, kept in tax havens.
Like Montana is another, especially the LLC tax loophole, which is still in place. So there's a lot of very exotic cars that have never been to Montana that are licensed in Montana.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to see that. Geez. Anyways, let's keep going here. Refugee talk. We were going to talk about something, but decided not to.
We forgot about it. I think we just skipped over it. But there's new refugee news, particularly in your neck of the woods, Bryce. Apparently the mayor signed a letter saying that, actually a completely non-committal letter that has absolutely no bearing on funding or refugees or anything, saying that...
You mean like that Paris Agreement that they said didn't mean shit?
Oh, this letter actually doesn't mean shit.
Oh.
Well, it's not a commitment. It's not an obligation. It is simply stating support. I read through it, and the wording asks President Trump to reconsider his demonization of refugees, and says that we would love them, but doesn't commit to anything, and certainly doesn't affect anything federally. But it became a big issue for you in Great Falls.
Why? Why? It's like, were we plotting out a camp?
No, there was no camp. But I tried to keep my ear to the ground on social media, and one of the, I think, sort of disgusting and ignorant comments I keep on seeing was like, well, if the mayor wants them so bad, they can camp out on his lawn. And as a guy who lives next to a family of refugees, I don't see what the offense is in that, really.
Yeah, bring them on over.
Well, they enrich in our lives, that's for sure. That had to be addressed even in your city council meeting, brought up by one of the council members about clarification on that. But it was...
I really wish that our commissioners bring up like important things and not dumb shit.
Well, this is the dumb shit getting brought up. And it sounds like we've been keeping a close eye on this specific council member because of his influence on social media. Not that we particularly like or dislike him for any reasons. It's just what he's been able to do with social media to get elected. It's not typical, and I haven't seen any other candidate be able to capture the attention of so many people just from Facebook memes. So we've been keeping an eye on that, and he's been remarkably well behaved in city council meetings I've seen.
Yeah, of course. He, I don't know. I'm trying to think. It was like off the record when he asked that guy to step outside, wasn't it?
Supposedly, he denies that allegation.
That was even said?
Right.
Oh. Wow.
We have to talk about that allegation because somehow somebody else that's running that ran against that was Rick Tryon we're talking about, just so we're all on the same page. And let's not spend too much time on this guy this time. Was Jasmine Taylor, who didn't run...
threatened to take her out?
No, but somehow she was reporting third person what was said. I think KRTV asked her or something around those lines, and then they were like, yeah, this is what I heard, is basically what she said. And then I'm not even sure why a news organization... don't quote me, it might not be KRTV. I understand they have high journalistic standards. Could be those other folks. I'd have to look it back. We spent more time than we should have on it. Kind of like we're doing right now.
Gonna go back and try and quote us and say, see what these evil people said, and then it's just gonna blow back because it's just like we're just two dudes with microphones. That's it. Yeah,
two dudes with microphones, and we don't really have a stance on anything. In fact, me and you disagree a lot. If they're looking for a liberal or conservative standpoint, I don't think either of us really fall into either camp, really. As evidenced, if you actually listen to any cast.
Precisely. But one thing we do have that they do not is a platform that spans across multiple different platforms.
And it's all open source.
Indeed. All open source. Not one penny spent on licensing costs.
So refugees are not coming to Great Falls. I'll have to look up the numbers, but unlike Missoula, which took in seemingly as many as they could.
Yeah, I figured they were all going to that college that you guys have there.
Going to the what?
You guys have that college there in Missoula.
Well,
I figured a lot of them probably go there to go to that.
Well, enrollment numbers are down, but I may have to look into the process. I know it takes a long time, but I don't believe you get to choose.
Huh.
I don't think so. I don't think so. It's just my neighbor specifically spent, I think it was 10 or 12 years in a refugee camp. All their children were born in a refugee camp, which is kind of sad. And according to them, there was nothing to do there but drink.
They spent 12 years in a camp?
Correct.
Oh my, yeah, that's pretty insane.
10 or 12 years, I forget the figure. It was over 10, though. So I don't believe they get to choose, and the numbers are sort of, I've seen different number reported, but some 80-some families have been relocated to Missoula, which, of course, a family is 3+. So we've got a handful of them, but I don't think we're seeing any of the problems that a lot of people said would be problems.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see that causing a lot of issues here.
Well, as far as I know, there's no issues, as far as I know. All I know is when I found a guy sleeping and having a campfire in my junk car that he was not a refugee.
Yeah. I was going to say, where was he from?
California? Probably came here on a bus, probably. Problem we've discussed before.
No,
Refugees, and moving on to Bullock. He had a special meeting with Obama, and the details of that meeting are surprisingly scarce, but he did fly out and have a meeting with him, and one of the things that we suspect was discussed is him running for the Senate. He could still run for the Senate, but he would be very late, but I don't know if that would hurt his chances at all.
I think it could. I don't know. I'm trying to think the last couple of people they've thrown in there at the last second, and none of them have done very good. I mean, he's also the governor, so he's got that clout running for him. So I think that would probably help out quite a bit.
Yeah, it's not too late to enter that race, and a lot of people were sort of asking why bother this presidential bid, including us.
I think that will hurt as well, though.
Yeah, so because, someone needs to take on Daines. Could be him.
Yeah, but he spent all that time, messing around with the presidential bid that literally everybody told him was useless, and then it ended up being useless. Imagine that. Shocker. So,
I don't know, maybe he can still pull it off. Bloomberg seems to think he can. Coming late, show up with some money, get things done.
Does Bullock have money to show up with?
Montana money is not federal money, so it's different, very different scales here.
I suppose you're right.
Well, other elected officials, Gianforte taking a stand against weed.
Oh, he would.
Of course, he's got that conservative right in him.
Yeah, he's got a base to play to.
Well, he's saying it's a misplaced priority, which, I don't know, maybe I kind of appreciate his stance a little bit. Because not him having the stance, but him actually having a position on this and sticking to it regardless of it, in my opinion, being wrong. Prohibition doesn't work. So he says it's a misplaced priority, and considering how popular the legalization and full-on legalization of weed is, as well as the medicinal marijuana, that he would say something like that and stand on it. He probably honestly believes that.
Yeah, here, let me read here. We should know how best to help people who need medical marijuana and how greater access to recreational marijuana will impact our communities, families, and users. However, expanding access to marijuana without the benefit and guidance of the facts and sound science is of grave concern.
Gianforte is concerned about science.
This is incredibly concerning. Incredibly concerning. Again, concern, because we have an addiction crisis in my home state of Montana. Meth, which is nothing like weed at all, and now opioids devastate our communities and tear apart too many families. Weed doesn't do that, though. to consider making any Schedule 1 drug legal and more readily available without adequate research is a misplaced priority as addiction continues to ravage our country. Instead, we should support focusing on combating addiction, building on this community's bipartisan work, and the success of the Support Act from Congress. We need to continue to support those who face addiction and need the help the most, rather than making marijuana easier to access when we don't know the full effects on our communities. And like, that's hilarious to me because they always take the same stupid ass approach of like, oh, there's not enough. We need to know the facts. All the facts aren't out yet. We don't know, like, there's
I mean, weed's been around for a while.
longer than like we've been able to record things. I think weed's been around. And yeah, no, like the science is all pretty much there on it, and like anything that they're finding out, it's all coming out to be just better and better. Usually there's not a whole lot of negative shit that comes out about it anymore.
Well, no one's
And
confusing weed
it's
for
funny, though,
meth.
Because anytime that you see somebody like Greg the Body here come out with this big stance of like, oh, I'd be all for it, but only when we know that it's fully safe. At no point will they ever step up and be like, well, let's go ahead and push some sort of legislation to look into that further so we can get that done. No, it's always immediately close the book, get it the hell out of here.
Well, it's just the hypocrisy, I think, is interesting.
Extremely.
So he does take the stand that we don't know that it's, and he's of course taking the opinion that it's, you know, the government's responsibility to protect people from the perils of weed. Yes.
What? The government's responsibility?
That is exactly what he's going on here.
Yeah. The federal government's impeding on my rights.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Now, granted, I'm not one of
Sounds
those.
like he's advocating for someone to be treading upon me.
That's exactly what he's advocating for here. In case we talk, we can get labeled as a lot of things, but I wouldn't even call it hard right, because Gianforte is hard right, I think, and he offers this protectionism stance of, you know, the people can't decide for themselves, that Big Brother needs to step in and tell me that I can't smoke weed. And to be clear, I'm not a weed person or any sort of drug person, but I don't think anybody, including myself, should have the right to tell another person that they can't, even if I disagree with that choice.
Yeah, I'm like he said, it's just very hypocritical of him to be telling us, after taking this whole approach to the conservative mindset of, you know, we need less government involved in things. I just imagine a lot of like the libertarian mountain men out there voted for him and then see stuff like this and just get ragingly disappointed that he would take such a stance of, the federal government being able to tell us what to do.
Yeah, the federal government, nonetheless, which is even scarier. At the very least, states and localities can decide. I mean, you can go that route, and you can make that decision on a even city basis. But anywho, well, that headline was not misleading, unlike this next one. So KPAX is reporting on the, I guess, Missoula City Commissioners voting to, or some of them, 3 out of 11 voted to default on our insurance obligations, which is not accurate at all, I think. This stems from a Mumford & Sons concert. For a little background, apparently the city of Missoula rents out the baseball stadium to Logjam Presents for functions throughout the year. And a Mumford & Sons came to town, and it just so happened we had a freak sort of rain shower, so the field was completely drenched, and apparently it got damaged during that. So a very wet field and lots of people, and destroyed the grass. They even had to cancel baseball games because of this.
It's a rowdy crowd there when they start tearing up the Mumford & Sons tunes.
Yeah, the Mumford & Sons probably loved it. It seems exactly like their ball house. I guarantee you that they made comments about the rain and then said they were going to play regardless, because that's how hardcore they are.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's a big deal. Of like, you know, we're not, a little rain ain't gonna stop us. We're Mumford & Sons, and then the crowd, gave a hearty heck yeah right back to them, and stomped right into the mud. And I'm sure there was some trench foot.
Well, I thought this was sort of a good opportunity to talk about the marriage of public resources and private investment, because other than the amphitheater over at that brewery in Bonner, and that has a cap. A baseball stadium is definitely bigger, but sort of the marriage of those and why localities build these things to sort of encourage business that only benefits a few. I didn't get any benefit from Mumford and Sons, I don't think, or any of the. I guess they have 6 or so concerts a year that are large events. Hopefully not while it's raining.
Yeah, I would hope not.
But as I understand, Logjam got a pretty good deal on the thing, which I guess sort of makes sense in that case. It sits unused when it's not being used for baseball. But we should also talk about their crap insurance policy. Apparently, insurance paid $35,000 to have the field rebuilt, which seems like a lot of money, but I guess it's a large field. And the deductible was $10,000.
Oof.
So 29% deductible, which, yeah, it seems like a bargain basement brand policy. Maybe we should shop. Maybe Geico can hook us up, or.
Yeah, there's got to be better insurance out there. I can see them after having to do a payout like that, though, just saying, nope, no more concerts. We're done.
Well, more concerts have happened since then, and as I understand, Logjam has no obligation in this. Yeah, it's sort of the last comment, and we should talk about the obvious slant in this journalism, because I looked at the members of the city council that voted to not pay the deductible, and they were advocating that Logjam should be held responsible for it, for the entire $35,000, actually, they argued. And they were, I guess, right-leaning folks on that city council. So KPAX is, I guess, leaning hard against them with this misleading headline, because when you read through it that we are defaulting on our insurance policy, that sounds very dire, that has consequences for Missoula. And first of all, they voted to do it as a whole, so Missoula City Council paid out $10,000 for the deductible. So no harm, no foul, I guess. But just sort of the paintbrush they're trying to paint these 3 commissioners with.
Yeah. Wild.
So we'll keep a lookout for slant in journalism, regardless of which way it sways. Well, last episode was called "Blogs Are Dead," but now we've been tweeted and we've researched, and we are not so sure. So late last year, the Billings Chamber of Commerce took down billboards after a sole blogger, suggested that they might be racist. And looking at the titles, first I was thinking that this was a case of, those least affected are most offended by it. This was just some white woman with a blog, pretty much. I didn't see natives speaking up on it. But so she, I guess, took the horn on that, and eventually, the Billings took them down. So they had slogans like today is ours for the taking, tomorrow too, which is interesting comment to make on stolen Indian land, and conquer new endeavors. So they've undid that, took down the billboards, and I guess blogs could be still relevant.
Huh. Well, if enough people see it, I guess, and they hear about it from enough places, I'm sure when stuff like that gets reposted on Facebook, that they can see it show up over and over again.
Yeah, it just looks bad for Billings. I mean, we expect this sort of thing out of Columbia Falls, as we've discussed. But Billings should be a bit more culturally aware, considering their proximity to more than one reservation. You would think,
yeah.
But I don't know how anybody in the misses that.
Hard to say.
The speaking of prohibition and the man coming down on us, the Bozeman City Commission is considering the banning tobacco in parks. So no more smoking in parks.
That seems like a place that would kick off an idea like that. I think you're going to see a lot of people be upset about that. You're going to see a lot of people turn around like, "Oh no, officer, it's just weed." And like, "Oh, well, all right, carry on."
Does it? I didn't read. Does it pertain to vape as well? Can we get those vapors out of there?
Probably. I imagine so. Everyone really hates the vaping thing.
Even the vapors. They're.
Oh, I mean, boomers specifically. Like anyone I've talked to about it, it seems unless they're like trying to quit smoking and they love vaping, because if you're smoking, you're trying to quit, it's a godsend. But if you never smoked in your life, and then you're seeing these kids skate around with this digital cigarette, it's just another thing to make fun of, it seems.
Yeah, the darn millennials with their fancy technology all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think it's a great idea. I don't think it'll kick over.
Well, it might. I mean,
Hard to
the
say.
safety
It
of
might,
children
if it-
won't.
It's really up in the air with it being Bozeman.
Yeah, won't
I think it's
somebody
stupid, though,
think of
'cause
the
it's
children?
outside. Yeah. Well, can you? I mean, playgrounds are tobacco free, aren't they? This is just parks.
Yeah, parks. Are playgrounds tobacco free?
Well, like, where are you going to smoke if you can't smoke at the park?
Yeah, we're taking away all the areas of smoking. You can smoke
We
in a
can't-
grass field out
We're not
back.
going to ban the product. We're going to ban its use everywhere. And you can buy it. You can take it where you want. You just have to be rich enough to afford a house to smoke it inside of.
And is this a? That's a good point. When I think parks, I think of like the playground for children, not the other 90% of the park, because I don't spend a lot of time there. So that's the entire park. Where are people going to smoke?
Yeah, the smoking area at their employer's place. What if they don't have a job,
Yeah, even
We're going to start putting away homeless people for smoking.
one more law in the books, and of course, as with any law, will not be enforced unilaterally. There's always discrepancies in that. I think, as far as smoking in the playground, maybe for city policies, but I haven't even seen those notices even in Missoula, so I don't know if we have the policy. Does Great Falls, or?
I don't think we have one on smoking in the parks. I'm not sure.
Well,
I haven't seen signs.
I would expect people to not smoke in a park. That seems like common sense, but I just don't know if it's a law in the books.
I don't think it is.
Let's maybe we'll research that for the next cast here, and we'll see. We'll keep an eye on Bozeman and see what they're doing over there. But Northwestern Energy's going green, or not. They fought it as hard as they could, which makes little sense. There was a lot of solar and wind dollars to get, and Northwestern Energy appears to have let it all go to foreign companies, essentially.
Nice move.
Yeah, good doing work. And I understand this is about Missoula as well. How Missoula is working with Northwestern Energy to, they were saying 100% by 2020. So 2030, not this year. So 10 years to be 100% on renewables, which is
Wow.
that's
pretty cool.
It is very cool and very optimistic, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you guys got a lot of data center stuff there.
Yeah, those Bitcoin mines are still.
Is that included? I wonder. Like, oh no, that part of Missoula, they scratched that out on the map projections. There, like, just don't worry about that part.
There's a lot of complaint about it, but the inconsistent power you get from both solar and wind. The Colstrip guy, I think I mentioned it before, but he had a point that you need coal for that residual power when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, which happens sometimes, I guess. But I wonder if it would be a good middle ground that those types of businesses can run off of renewable energies.
Maybe.
Well, I guess we'll see if that happens. And wasn't Great Falls considering a sort of similar non-committal commitment to try to go green at some point?
Something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, God forbid you sign something in an email form. What if it mentions refugees?
Oh, that'll come back and
gosh,
bite you.
Here we go. Like, there's no saying.
Well, I have crapping on Canada on the docket again. That seems to come up every once in a while, and I tell everybody that'll listen that we're building this wall on the wrong border. We've got to keep those Canadians and their feral hogs out.
Ooh, more feral hogs?
No, we want to. No, that's not feral hogs. I was promised feral hogs, and they have yet to arrive.
Defenses must be holding out still.
Luckily, the Border Patrol's up there is doing its job.
Doing what it's supposed to.
Yeah, so I was promised feral hogs. Still no feral hogs. But polite Canadians are a myth. And some of them, I'm sure, are good people. but they are in an issue with native matters up north. And the term that's getting tossed around is reconciliation, because Canada has been particularly not good to Native Americans. When you look back at American history, you can see that there's a few presidents that were really bad about it, like Andrew Jackson, but it sort of waned a little bit, and now we're slowly accepting, sort of the sins of our past here. But Canada has taken a lot longer to do it, and they have been worse to it. And some of those schools that had that 75% mortality rate, those were Canadian schools.
Oof.
And we're not that far away from Canada, as you know. In fact, specifically the Blackfeet, and I think the Northern Cheyenne may have gotten that far north, but the Blackfeet, they're made up of 4 tribes, and I forget the number, but some of them are Canadian. They're the Blackfeet Confederated, but they're in a different country, but they're 4 different tribes. It's confusing. All Native matters are. So I spent too much time on Citizens United last time trying to explain that and failing at that. So we'll try to not do the same on the Blackfeet here.
Good call there. I'm just... you probably tell I'm a little tired. I just don't have it in me to
fight
try
it.
to... Yeah, no.
Well, Canada is seeing sort of the same things that we're seeing down here. It's over a pipeline. And there's one Pacific tribe that says that they're going to shut down Canada over the matter. They've actually taken trains hostage. They've stopped trains, protests. They've tied themselves to tracks. They are stopping a pipeline.
Ooh, yeah, I think I might have heard about. No, actually, never mind. It wasn't them. I heard down in the South that they had something similar going on with the coal train there. The coal company had basically said that they couldn't pay the miners, and the miners were finally fed up with hearing that for like the 3rd week in a row. So they decided to camp out on the tracks.
As I understand that they got paid, that problem got figured out.
Probably. It seems to be a way to get done for other people. Maybe not everybody.
Canada's having the same troubles, and they brought this on themselves, really. So let's end this on a high note, Bryce. We have fewer personalized plates to choose from. You no longer go in and get a list of, 250 or something?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good, because I was getting tired of seeing those. I saw a lot of people complaining about this online the other day, too. And it was funny because their complaints were just so ridiculous. A lot of people use this as like a income influx. A lot of these companies and organizations that have these plates, because I believe they get a cut from the plate fee.
They do.
Yeah. And that plate fee is pretty ridiculous. It's like $35.
Yeah,
something extra.
A decent chunk of change. And I'm happy that it gets somewhere, but
cool. But why don't you just make money off of your business instead of having a plate? Because it was cool to start out with. Now that there's 250, it is ridiculous. It's to a point now because no other states do this, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, we're like the only one. Everyone else got their default, here's your license plate, But Montana, what? Can you upload a JPEG and have it put on a license plate?
That would be incredible. I don't see why we can't.
We might as well.
I mean, we're printing these things anyway, so.
Yeah, right there on the spot. There's no reason why they can't. In fact, it probably is just a JPEG that gets dropped onto there.
Yeah, so some 85 of them have been discontinued, and
perfect. Yeah, no, because I saw people on there oh, well, what about the businesses that were, had to give theirs up? Do they get a warning of any sort to and it's no, just they're canceled. They're done. Get them out of here.
Well, some of them were surprising.
3 choices.
Blackfeet tribe no longer has their own personalized plate. The Boy Scouts don't.
Well, I don't know. The Blackfeet tribe, I could see them
taxation
keeping one.
Theft.
That's. I feel like they should keep theirs, just given everything. It's the least we could do, like everything else. But Boy Scouts, yeah.
Sell some more popcorn.
Yeah, there's just after you rape enough kids, I don't think you should be able to make money off of my license plate sales.
Well, apparently most Montanans agree. And these are all nonprofits. Even the city of Bozeman lost their plates. which I
I
find
didn't know they had
hilarious.
set.
It wasn't.
City of Bozeman plates. What do those even look like?
Well, now we will never know. Yeah, Planned Parenthood also lost plates, and sort of surprising, but when you go in and you get a list of all these plates, like I can't even look at all of them, and like you have to know beforehand. You're handed. I just registered a card. I was handed a folder with it's like pick from one of these, and I was like, this is confusing. Which are the free ones? And they still made me pick from 4. Like
Yeah, I got the traditional one from like
the 89 or whatever, or 88.
I believe so. It's not. It's the one with like the blue state with like the yellow and orange trim on the top. I believe
Ah.
it was the one that was around for like most of the 90s.
Well, I think I have a classic one. No, I have a 1992 or 4 one. I forget. It doesn't really matter because I didn't really want to pick. I'm like, just hand me a license plate. I don't want to be here. We're ending on a high note, so let's go ahead and get this one in the books here, Bryce.
Good deal. Yeah, let's go ahead and end off with the business here, I suppose, then. All right, so once again, you could probably just edit this out instead of having to record it every time. But if not,
We'll do it live. We'll do it live.
We plug straight in, no effects. You're probably listening to us on our website right now, MontanaVoicesPodcast.com. If you'd like to be on this wonderful show, or if you have any questions or comments or concerns, you can email us at MontanaVoices@gmail.com. Our Twitter feed is going to be at Montana_voices. Our Facebook account is at Montana Voices Podcast. And you can find every episode on YouTube by searching at Montana Voices Podcast.